You're listening to the Fezcast, produced on behalf of the Saracens Supporters Association and featuring the independent thought.
This is your emergency broadcast system. This is your emergency broadcast system.
Morning, Grandad. A ticky tonga, a ticky tonga, a massa wire, a massa wire. Leo, leo.
We apologise for that temporary loss of transmission. We can now return you to
the Fezcast. Listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody, and first of all, say hi, Matt and John. But John, who was that? Tiki Tonga reciter? Go on, give us a bit of the lowdown there.
Yeah, thanks to little Ollie Williams, 6 years old from Ramsgate, via the North Stand, Block 27 at the StoneX, who's his dad Rob sent me that little clip that he sent his Quinn supporting granddad at 6 o'clock this morning, Sunday morning, to wake him up with. So shout out to Ollie and to Rob. See you all next Saturday.
Oh, absolutely fantastic that was, wasn't it? Well, been a good weekend, hasn't it, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, apologies to anyone that had a bit of a heart attack with us. I was sticking that in there, but it felt like it had to be done. But yeah, it's a really good weekend for us. Good double for Saracens. Amped till 1 as well, with a lot of Saracens players involved in that. So it's gravy all round, definitely.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to hold my hand up in the air here and say I'm winging this quite a lot because me and Shazza, on our wedding anniversary weekend, decided to start everything off and go down to the StoneX for the women's game against Loughborough Lightning. Only the Parliament roadworks on an accident on the M40 at Stoke and Church Cutting, and then the old about snaps on Sharon's car. So we spent the time. We could have been watching the Saracens women get a great result, and also obviously the Saracens men as well. We spent it sat by the side of the M40 in the cold, which wasn't fun.
No, pretty unfortunate for you there, mate. But I'm sure, even though you've seen no rugby whatsoever, you'll still have an opinion on it, won't you?
Well, absolutely. And look, how are we going to do this? You've got a couple of interviews, haven't you, Matt, from the women's game where despite the restraining orders and everything that undoubtedly you've got on you, you've managed to speak to Sophie de Goede and Zoe Harrison, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, I'm very grateful to the club. They are recognising the Fezcast weirdly as proper media, and we did get a little bit of access at the women's game. Both myself and Joe peek around. Joe obviously takes some brilliant photos from a lot of the women's game, and Muggles over here was given a bit of access as well. So I was able to speak to Sophie out in the freezing cold straight after the game. And then a little bit more comfort in the media room with a little chat with Zoe Harrison. So yeah, off the back of Saracens beating Loughborough, let's should we hear what they've got to say before we have a say on it, Jez?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Hi, Alex Osterbury here, Director of Rugby for Saracens Women. You're listening to the Saracens Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
So I'm here post-match Saracens versus Loughborough Lightning with a pretty strong win for Saracens in the first PWR game. And I've got Sophie de Goede with me, who scored a couple of tries today. Sophie, how did it feel for you today?
Felt great. I think the home crowd really got behind us. So, it was a really exciting game and I think a good performance with lots to build on.
Excellent. I mean, personally, I was standing next to about 15 screaming kids who I think were all Sidney Gregson students, so I've got a bit of a headache today, but lots of people shouting for yourself as well. For you, what brought you back to Saracens after a couple of years? What was the sort of decision process around that for you?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like last time I was here was during our COVID season, and so didn't really get the full series experience, like within the club and also with the fans and kind of the environment around the club. So I have heard so much about it, and I just really wanted to fully understand what it was like to be a Saracens club member. And then also just I felt like this environment with these coaches and these players, this daily training environment, was the best place for me to continue to develop and grow as a rugby player.
sounds pretty fair to me. That's fantastic. And the experience of playing in the new tournament, the WXV for Canada, and then coming straight back here, straight into league matches, has that been a bit of a challenge for you, or just ready to hit the ground running?
Yeah, it's definitely been a whirlwind, but they were both different challenges and exciting in their own right, and it's always a privilege to represent Canada, but it's definitely an honour to come back here and pull on a series shirt, which brought some excitement of its own. And I think the season's long, and so this was a great way to kick it off, but there's lots to look forward to.
Excellent. And any goals for yourself for the season personally, or is it just a case of winning every game and winning a few trophies at the end of it too?
Yeah, the trophy at the end. That's all.
No, that's fair play. Well, player of the match today, you felt it went pretty well then, I take it?
Yeah, I'd say we need to work on our discipline, and that'll be something that we definitely look at, and what breakdowns we're picking and choosing as we go forward. But decent counterattack and some good finishes, so overall positive.
That's fair, and a little bit unfortunate the ball came off the kicking tee to start with as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then apparently it happened to Zoe too. I don't know, maybe we need to get people to hold the ball down.
Well, it is a bit blowy up at the StoneX today, but Sophie, very well done today. Hope the rest of the season goes well for you, and hopefully we'll speak to you again on the show soon.
Thanks, appreciate it.
This is the Fezcast.
Welcome to the first ever Fezcast recorded live from the Saracens media room. So a bit of a privilege for us to be speaking to Zoe Harrison after today's game. Zoe, it's been a fairly long road back from injury for you. We'll come to that in a bit, but just getting half an hour under your belt today, did that feel pretty good for you, or is there a bit to work on?
Yeah, no, it felt good. I've been in training for about 6 weeks now, so it was nice to actually finally get on the pitch, but because I've been in training for so long, I didn't feel like there was anything... I didn't feel that I'd been out for so long.
No, it's good news. It's good news. And just with the team performance today, obviously, fairly big scoreline by the end of the match, but it took a little while to get going. 17-7 after the first half. Is there a bit to work on for the team, or pretty happy going forward?
The first half wasn't. We wouldn't say was great, and also our discipline was terrible throughout the whole of the game, so that's a major work on. But I think first game of the season, a lot of internationals have come back, so it was good to get our first game in. As I say, first half wasn't great, but I think it was like building into a game of a new season with new signings and people coming back from international.
No, that's good. And look, let's get onto the injury that you had. It's been a long road back, obviously, when it first happened against Quins earlier on this year or last year, I guess. Pretty damaging injury. Is it? How's the mindset been for you in terms of that long road back from injury?
Luckily, well, not luckily, but there was a few people at Sarries that had done their ACL. It just seemed like the season of the ACLs. So we kind of formed like a bit of a rehab club. So that wasn't just me and Donna and Jodie. It was also like Theo was in it, Sam Cream was in it. So there was like a few of us in it, and also there was some other people that would like get injured here and there who would like fall into the same time as us rehabbing. So it was nice to know that other people were going through it, even though like it's not nice, but there was other people there. So if I'm honest, like it wasn't. There was times where it wasn't terrible because there were other people there with you throughout the journey, and also sometimes I think I had to look at it as when I did it was the best time to ever do a long-term injury. Just after the World Cup, I'm 25, it was kind of nice to have a little break from rugby, take a step back, actually work on something else like in the gym, and just have a different look on life. Stuff that then you go away and work on for in the future, or just doing something else. Because if you can repetitively do something, it can get a little bit boring. So it was nice to do gym better, become more athletic for when I came back, also look at rugby in a different way, and also look at stuff that I should be doing in future, or stuff that I always miss out on I've now got to do.
So what are you most looking forward to for the forthcoming season? I mean, hopefully keeping injury free, but what else is on the agenda for Zoe?
Just playing in this team that we've got now is such a well-depth team. There's a lot of talent in it, and it's just exciting to have that many good players to play with. Also having the new coaches in is exciting. We've got Duncan Taylor, who's just come out off the back of winning a Prem with the boys, so that's exciting to have his knowledge with us, and working closely with him.
Fantastic. Yeah, fair play. And still only 25, but with the vast amount of experience in this squad. Do you see yourself at all as being a bit of a mentor for any of the younger players coming through? I mean, particularly with Amelia playing today.
I've actually really enjoyed having Amelia come through. I haven't worked here and there with her a little bit, but she was there throughout all the cup stuff, so she got to take a lead on that. But it's now nice because I can see a very good talent in Amelia, and I'm very excited to see her grow, because she's young, but she's had to step into a Saracens 10 shirt at a young age, and the way that the game's grown since I was in that 10 shirt when I was 18 is just massive. So her being put into that, it will be a lot of pressure, but it's good to get it into her early, because I think she'll grow into a very great player. So yeah, I do actually like working with her, because also working with her is keeping my knowledge going, because it's repeating stuff that I need to think of.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of the 10 shirt, obviously with you away, there's been a lot of competition for that 10 shirt for England as well, and obviously Holly's moved on to Bristol. Is there a big goal for you to get back into that number 10 shirt for England, or are you just sort of looking with a slightly different perspective at the moment?
Firstly, it will be playing for Sarries and getting used to playing in that 10 shirt again, and getting back to it. But yeah, that's the aim, to play 10, start 10, looking to play 10 in that next World Cup.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So opening game of the season, good win today. So who do you think, looking forward at the season, is going to be Sarries' biggest competitors?
It's going to be people like Gloucester, isn't it? It's the people that have been top 4 the last few years. I think it will be those teams will be the big competitors, but they will be the fun games to play against, especially with our team that's coming out now.
Anyone particularly you're looking forward to playing against this year?
You know what? I don't look at teams and go I just take the team I'm gonna play that week and go for it. I don't look ahead to what fixtures really come in for me. I can't say there's one where I'm like probably the final is the game that I'm looking forward to.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, yeah, brilliant stuff there, Matt. And as I say, thanks to the club. But I mean, what a great result. I mean, first weekend of the PWR, there's been an awful lot of movement in the press, in the media. They really pushed it, and a lot of the games, but particularly ours, really did put on a show, didn't they, Matt?
Yeah, there was a lot of good rugby all round, actually. And yeah, I mean, from our side, I think we started off a little bit slow. We started off with a yellow card pretty much immediately as well, and there were 5 yellow cards in the game, so they were being handed around like confetti. But 17-7 at half time, I think we were a little bit off the boil slightly in that first half. I think there was a few of us that were a little bit concerned that Loughborough's back 3 very, very quick, very, very strong, and we did seem to be kicking straight to them and then letting them run at us, which is a little bit concerning. I think actually if they were able to throw a line out and catch properly, they might have actually been ahead of us at that point. But certainly, I mean, as good as Amelia McDougall looks as an 18-year-old fly half, has got a very promising career ahead of her. As soon as Zoe came on with half an hour to go, you just saw that the control that we had stepped up massively, and we just ran away from it in the end.
Well, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it, John? I mean, if you've got a young kid there playing, and you've got someone like Zoe Harrison who, has been around the block, and still fairly young herself, but, so much experience, not only Saracens, but international level. Amelia's going to learn from that, isn't she?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we see sort of parallels in the men's team with Manu Vunipola. So, each time the younger player gets their chance, they've got to take it. And, I'm sure that it won't be too long before she gets another run out. And as you say, she can only learn from working and training with world-class players day in, day out. And that's, that throughout the entire organisation, that's exactly what we do. And we do it so well.
So the interesting thing, Matt, I mean, from your point of view, having been there, I mean, there's a few players come back. It was interesting to see Marley Packer on the bench, but came on, got to try herself. Poppy Cleal, she's obviously not had the international time of it through injury or whatever. I mean, how did she fare coming back into that team, did you think?
Yeah, I mean, from Marley's point of view, Joe was fortunate enough just to get a few words from Marley about how she was feeling and why she was on the bench. Her exact words are unbroadcastable, but they were along the lines of, "I am very tired." So that was why Marley started on the bench. From Poppy's point of view, I mean, she was one of the recipients of a yellow card, but it was one of those where it was Loughborough on a break and they were heading towards the try line, and she very professionally killed the ball. It does happen. Yeah, she looked good. I think from Poppy's point of view, she's not been involved with England, like you say. And looking at the players we have around the squad, there is an awful lot of competition in the second row and in the back row. And Poppy perhaps isn't, the first name on the team sheet at this point. She's got a lot of competition, which for someone of her competitive nature is probably going to bring the best out of her, which is fantastic. But yeah, there was a lot of old players, new players, returning players, a lot of people performing very well. Sophie de Goede herself was player of the match. Didn't quite have her kicking boots on, unfortunately, as you mentioned, but yeah, she was absolutely everywhere in that back row. May Campbell played very well, throwing in. Actually kicked a grubber kick through, which led to a try. So Jamie George would have been pretty chuffed with that had he seen it. And in the second half, the backs really cut loose, particularly Sydney Gregson. And yeah, it was a pretty solid performance, all told. But Zoe herself was a bit critical of the discipline, which I think is absolutely fair enough. So it shows that there's just more to come as well.
Well, that's what you want from your team, isn't it? A continual improvement and the ability to be self-critical and really, understands that you want to do better and not sit on your laurels. And, I think it's clear from a lot of the words that have been said prior to this match that not reaching the final last year, John, has lit a fire under an awful lot of those Saracens players.
Well, these players they're used to competing at the business end of the season and to picking up winners' medals. So, as we've seen throughout history, throughout the club, throughout the organisation, if there is a setback or something doesn't quite go our way, Saracens are very, very good at bouncing back and making sure that doesn't happen back to back. So I've got full belief that the women will have a good crack at it this year, and it wouldn't surprise me if they don't go on and win it.
Oh, absolutely not. Right. Shall we have a quick break there, Matt? And we'll come back. We'll talk Amptill, I think, first before we get onto the main bones of the Fezcast.
Or leave us hanging.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracens Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the StoneX.
This is the Fezcast.
Okay, so before we move on to the main bones of Saracens away at Queen's, small matter of Amptill coming down to London Scottish and putting 36 points on them with an awful lot of Saracens involvement in that team. And it's great to see some players such as Jackson and Keir and Charlie Bracken and Pierce Paul getting some exposure to really competitive rugby, Matt.
Yeah. The relationship with Amptill is getting stronger every season, really. And I know there's been a few comments, sort of social media wise, about it's a bit of a piss take for the Amptill players who sort of don't get into the team because there's Saracens boys coming down. But they're, from Amptill's point of view themselves, they're dead chuffed. Certainly from a management perspective, some of their players are playing with some very strong Saracens players. Let's not forget that clubs like Ampthill, they have a second 15 that plays in the league system, unlike Saracens. So everyone is still getting a competitive game. So yeah, it's fantastic, really. Brandon Jackson scored a couple of tries, which is good because I think he's had a few injury issues and he's looked pretty sharp when he's played for Saracens. I think it was Capelli Piffoletti and Tobias Elliott that got a couple of tries for Ampthill as well, and they've both been involved for Ampthill in previous games. So yeah, we've said for a while, and particularly when we had our pretty dismal cup fixtures last year, that our younger players just, they didn't seem to be getting enough game time together. And it was showing when they were coming into the team and they were perhaps a little bit cold. And so this can only be of benefit to them. And I think Ampthill are probably sitting second or third in the table at the moment. So Saracens B, if we're going to be really cheeky about it, are doing pretty well in the Championship.
Well, undoubtedly so, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, for everything that's being said there, rugby is a results business. And if Ampthill have got the opportunity to bring some players in that gives them those results, ups their visibility amongst the game and makes them more competitive, that's all good, isn't it, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Mind you, if the injury crisis at Saracens continues the way it is, I don't think we'll be seeing too many of our players turning out for Ampthill. But yeah, Matt said the Ampthill are happy with the agreement, and it's getting exposure and game time and proper experience in proper matches which have meaningful. The results mean a lot at that level. So let's hope that partnership continues to flourish and it helps the youngsters, because it's as far as I can see, you can't be doing anything bad. It's just all positive. But yeah, like I say, they better hope that we don't end up needing to pinch all 10 of them back for Saturday.
Well, indeed. I mean, that is the thing, isn't it? But at least if that does happen, these guys are battle hardened and ready to go. But talking of results, we can't not now talk about the big one. And we remain, and always will be, the Kings of London, Matt.
Yeah. There was a lot of chat, wasn't there, before the start of the game, and I think we did what we should do, really, and just stay quiet and let the rugby do the talking. The first couple of weeks of the season seem a long, long time ago already, don't they? That was a pretty complete performance from Saracens. Again, the back row and the second row were dominant, absolutely fantastic. We probably did most of our try scoring via mauling, but it was a lot of work from the backs that set us up in that position, particularly. Given, as John mentioned, the injury crisis we've had. I mean, we had 2 players pull out before the game even started, and then one within 2 or 3 minutes, and having to have a bit of a reshuffle. And for the likes of Tom Parton and Ollie Hartley that came in and played a full match, pretty much, they were absolutely fantastic. And yeah, it was just one of those days. I mean, if it was the other way around, we were talking about one of those days in the game that we played against Exeter. That is one of those for Quins. But for all of the chat before the game, you really would have expected more from them. But yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic performance all round.
Yeah, indeed, it's quite interesting actually. I mean, I will mention, as I said, it's mine and Sharon's wedding anniversary. So my mum and dad came up. They took us out for lunch, and one thing my mum mentioned was the before the game on TNT Sports. Craig Dodd had got Jamie George and Danny Kerr together, and he turned around to Danny Kerr and went, well, you hate this lot, don't you? And Danny's sort of gone, oh, no, not really. Jamie's one of my best mates in the game. And there seems to be an awful lot of the media trying to build up. It's a healthy rivalry. We have some great banter with them and everything, as you would do with local rivals, no different to what Saints and Tigers have or Bath and Bristol have. But it's people are trying to make it out to be something that it isn't, aren't they, John?
It seems they are, but then I also don't think that's too much of a bad thing, because if there is genuine jeopardy and the interest levels are raised, even if it is being forced, then it perhaps brings eyes or new eyes to the game, because there's always, that's one thing that you could say about football. There's a lot of London derbies in the Premier League, for example. There's a lot of areas around the country where matches between Ipswich and Norwich, for example, mean a hell of a lot to a hell of a lot of people. And apart from really, in my opinion, Leicester and Northampton, I don't think that really exists in the Premiership to that degree anywhere else. And I think it's the same with Quins. It's you know, I don't hate them. I can't lie. Like I would say, if you ask me about Arsenal, for example, I would have a different answer. And I do think that is just because the difference in the sports. There's a level of respect and integrity which we try to upkeep in the game of rugby, and I think that stops the idiots from, because that's what it is ultimately. You get tribal and you get hooliganism and stuff in other sports which we don't want in rugby, but we also, it does mean more to win away at the Stoop than probably anywhere else for me. But as I say, I don't hate them, but geographically they are our local rivals, and putting one over them and a record win for us in the Premiership at the Stoop and completely shutting them up was a lovely, lovely feeling, and we had a great Saturday night because of it. But yeah, I mean, mate, I was still buzzing now, honestly, 24 hours later. It was such a good performance.
Well, absolutely. Talking of good performances, the one thing we do have to mention, because it's the one thing that everybody highlighted before the game, and about this game being answering the seemingly 5-year-old question, who's better at 10, Faz or Smith? And that question's been put to bed, hasn't it? You know, I like Marcus Smith. I think he's not going to be another Cyprian. I've already said this already. I think he's got enough in him that he will develop, he will work hard, and he will try his hardest to be a better player. But when it comes down to it, I think one comment from one of the Quins is, well, you know, Marcus Smith behind him, you know, that Saracens pack going forward would spark the backline. Well, of course he would, but so did Owen Farrell. The difference is that Quins pack wasn't going forward, and when you needed someone to be behind a pack going backwards and keep you in the game, Owen Farrell's that man as well. And, you know, that's just the mark of the guy, is that he's got so much difference to his game. And the old master, it's like he's gone away to the World Cup and he's shown Marcus Smith everything in the red book, but he's still got the black book tucked away in his back pocket. It's not going to come out for another couple of seasons at least, until, you know, when Faz is ready to let the next generation through, as it were, Matt.
Yeah, there was a lot of Smith v Farrell chat. I mean, just on the whole rivalries thing, I agree with everything that John said, and I think actually we should say fair play to the organisers in rugby for once for deciding that a full weekend of loosely termed derby fixtures was a pretty good idea, and hopefully that continues. But yeah, with Smith and Farrell, a lot of it was about, you know, the key statistics. Passes and meters and tackles and all sorts of bits. And Marcus Smith is leading Owen on most of them, except for tackling, because Marcus Smith can't tackle, and most people say Owen Farrell can't tackle legally, but at least he actually makes tackles. But there's an awful lot that doesn't really come out in statistics for the way number 10 controls a game. And that's exactly what Owen did this weekend. He controlled the game from 10 really well, backed up by Alex Goode, a 15/10 as well. And Marcus Smith in the 60th, 70th minute was still trying a hitch kick and running into traffic and going nowhere, and wasn't able to find any other way of going about things. His kicking was going missing because he was being put under an awful lot of pressure. And yeah, like you say, a forward pack being fairly dominant, it certainly helps a 9 and 10 combination. In fact, you know, it's very hard for a 9 and 10 to actually force a game if your pack's going backwards. But yeah, it was a no contest in that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, we've spoken a lot over the last couple of weeks talking about the forwards, and I think, you know, they again fronted up, particularly in defence. I think there was a period of time around about the 50th to the 60th minute where Quins were knocking on the door, and that door was not being opened. But at risk of going on about them all the time, I want to focus on another player who's very, very much under the radar, and I think has never, ever let Saracens down. And I know when we had Jack Sorab on a couple of seasons ago, Matt, he mentioned Alex Lewington as a bolter for the British Lions. And Alex Lewington is playing some of the best rugby he's played this season. Whether that's because he knows, you know, he was up against Max Bailey's last year, And whether that's, that's not there and, he's got a bit, or whether it's because he's getting an extra long run because there are some injuries around and he's an experienced player. Over to you, John. Go on.
I was going to say, I'm not a winger, so maybe we're the wrong person. But yeah, for me, Alex Lewington is one of those players who I'd put him in the same bracket as Jackson Ray and other people like that, who during international breaks you rely on. And this is, although it's not in an international break now, obviously, he's grasped his opportunity. And I think he knows that he's going to get an extended run in the side, especially with the lack of competition fit and available at the moment. And Mark McCall's a master of pumping people up and making them believe that they're the best in the world. And it's obviously a conversation that they've had. It must be, because he's never been. I don't think he'll probably never play for England. Unfortunately, he'll never be an international, but he's good enough. But in our system, it just works. And the try he got at the end there yesterday was just classic. All right, it will come off from Alex Goode, who we know is the genius and the master, but you've got to have someone on the same wavelength, and Lewington seems always to be on that same wavelength, and he's a very important player for us, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think perhaps we can start wrapping this up. I mean, because I think we'll end up saying the same things time and time again, won't we, Matt? Let's have a look forward to the Bristol coming up on the weekend, and I spoke to Pete of Beyond Bears Beyond the Gate, which went out this last weekend, Sunday night, before we played Quins. And I mean, one of the questions he asked me was, and it was very difficult to answer it without coming over as a bit arrogant or a bit sort of like condescending almost. But he said, give us a glimmer of hope, because people are looking at Saracens, Matt, now. And those first two matches, the Bath and the Chiefs loss, it's almost as if we turned around and said, we don't want to be too far ahead. Let's make sure that it's competitive. And, we take a couple of losses. We're now back. And it doesn't matter which side we've seen to put out. We are, making very good teams like Quins look a bit ordinary. And, Pete's question to me was, give us a glimmer of hope. Have we got a chance? And, I had to say, look, we fire like the way we can fire. And I don't think we've even got out of third gear particularly yet in any game. There's not a team in the world really that could actually live with this Saracens team. However, you've got a puncher's chance, and everybody can. On your day, you can win, and we've seen that a lot. I mean, you've seen Exeter Chiefs only just squeak a win against the poor Gloucester team. Sale had to struggle a bit against Newcastle. Bath Bristol was 1 point in it. It does seem like on any day anybody can beat anybody. So I don't think we're going to go for the rest of the season now. It was an interesting question to see how other team supporters are perceiving Saracens, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it probably looks a bit different for us because we had our 2 losses at the start of the season and then we've won everyone since. But, I mean, you look at the state of the league at the moment, nobody's really got away. And like you say, there is a bit of a theme, and it does seem to be that every now and then a team sort of switches off for 10 or 15 minutes and then all of a sudden they're 21 points down. And it's happened to pretty much every single team. So it just shows that we do need to be fit and firing, and against every single team in the league. So yeah, Bristol have certainly got a chance. If we're not on it for 75 plus minutes of the game, then they could very easily get a foothold into it. I mean, like you say, that the defeat against Bath at home, we didn't actually get a shot in. And Bristol have shown enough this season that they've got plenty of talent in their team. Yes, they're really blowing hot and cold, and they've got some problems. But at the end of the day, everyone can beat everyone. It'd be interesting to see how much we're licking our wounds with the injuries at the following the Queen's game. I mean, Ben Earls in the warm-up particularly didn't sound fantastic at all. And Elliot Daly, we think, maybe was just a little bit 50-50 before the start of the game and was rested as a bit of a precaution. So we hope he's okay. But yeah, if we're missing some of our key players, we could be back into a position where we were against Exeter and Bath, where we are missing a few of our key men, and it really does show now that everyone's squads have been squeezed a little bit. So yeah, they've got a chance. But equally, it could be the day that we've really do turn up and kick into 4th, 5th and 6th gear and we put 50 points on them. But that's the fun of it. We don't actually know at the moment. It's making the season more exciting.
Well, it certainly is that. I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? That we all said at the start of the season who we thought would struggle, who we thought would be good. Sam is probably still sat here saying that Exeter Chiefs are going to struggle. I don't think that's the case, although obviously there's issues there about whether their players are getting paid on time or not, which is a discussion for another time. The one team that surprised me a lot so far has been Bath, but then again, if you've got someone as good as Finn Russell giving you that X factor, that's perhaps what they needed, along with a second-year coaching team really finding their feet. So, yeah, I think Bath will be there or thereabouts at the back end of it. We will say will, and it's one of Tigers, Chiefs, Quins, Saints, I suppose. What do you think, John?
I mean, it still seems so early to be having these conversations, but then you realise we're a third of the way through the season, which is quite mad. But it all depends.
I'm just going to interrupt there as well, because Jez has mentioned, I think, 8 teams there. I mean, there's only 10 in the league now. So.
I mean, Gloucester and Newcastle ain't troubling and nobody at the upper end of the table, are they? But
yeah, no, honestly, it could. I mean, for this weekend coming, for example, it depends. I am concerned, as Matt was saying, about our, and you're talking about players who are as important as Ben Early is and Elliot Daly is, and Alex Lazowski's one worried me quite a lot because it was off the, he was just running and it seemed his knee went. And generally, you find the ones where there's no actual impact are the worst ones sometimes. So, I mean, we'll see, but I'm still, I'll confidently say we'll finish in the top 2. But whatever happens with the rest of the league, it's anyone's guess. There genuinely is probably 8 teams that could squeeze into that top 4, and there will be peaks, troughs, and all sorts along the way. But we're enjoying it now than we were the first 2 weeks of the season.
Absolutely. Well, look, gentlemen, thank you for your time today, and yeah, brilliant. We'll go off and have a couple of pints of winners beer, have our cheesy winners grins face on, and go and wind up a few more Quins lads on Twitter and Facebook or whatever, because that's always good fun, isn't it? And they do take it in good spirit. But we'll be back next Wednesday on the 29th with another edition of the Fezcast. But until then, from myself, Matt and John, we'll say thank you for listening in. Thank you guys for your input, and we'll see you next week. And ta-ra!
This is the Fezcast.
A ticky tonga, a ticky tonga, a massa wire, a massa wire, lay, ole, ole, lay, ole, ole.